Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is a sidetrack from the long-running series from this incredible author, 02321, from over on Reddit No Sleep, but something that I know you all sink your teeth into. Of course, as ever though, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. And title: A God in the Woods Feasts on Strange Meals. Let's get straight into that. My life didn't start out easy. I was handicapped by addicted parents and then into the foster care system until I aged out. And with being at rock bottom before I could control any aspect of my surroundings, it made it understandable that I wouldn't turn into a productive member of society, only to continue with the cycle I've been burdened with. And for a very long time, I assumed my choice of friends, couch hopping, and addictions could be blamed on everything but myself. When I was 19, I'd already moved around to a great deal of different couches and on the verge of being homeless. I got into some pretty heavy drugs about 6 months at that point. The place I found myself staying at was a party house. The entire place trashed and not fit for humans to live inside. Yet, so many of us passed out after taking our vice of choice to wake up and do the same thing. And I guess that wasn't really living. A new girl showed up one night. I'd never seen her before and thought she looked too, well, shiny to be around us. She must have had a light coming off of her. I didn't talk with her. I didn't know who she came with. I quickly drowned in my own vices and blacked out for most of the night. I woke up to see her on the couch, face far too pale. I got up and turned her over on reflex, and I suddenly felt very sober when I saw fluid coming from her mouth. And I didn't think it was possible for someone like me to act in a proper way in such a dire situation. Somehow, we got her help at the right time. She lived and needed her stomach pumped. I never even learned what her full name was. After the ambulance left with her, it all hit me at once. Sure, I grew up in a terrible condition, but she clearly didn't. She nearly died by going down the same path. She made the same choice I did, but she never really should have been there long enough to make that choice. We all knew better. I felt as if I'd nearly killed her, along with the person she had bought the booze and drugs off of that night. We all had choices, and sure, at first things may have started out terrible, but I'd made the choice to try and not improve my life. I got into this point because of my own. I couldn't keep blaming everything else on things I couldn't control. After that night, I got away from that group of people and did everything possible to become a better person. I never wanted to be almost the reason why someone died, or keep pinning my problems on anything else. And sure, crap happens, but you can always do something to improve, even in the slightest. The first year, it was rough, really rough. I nearly died from the withdrawals, or at least it felt like it. I worked hard not to fall for the same vices, feeling the need to down my bones. An ache always there, wanting and needing the poison I'd refused to give my body. I'd hoped that this feeling wouldn't always be with me. Some days I might not even notice it, and others I almost couldn't get out of bed due to it. And for over 5 years I stayed clean, no drinking, only cigarettes to calm my nerves. Even when weed became legal, I didn't touch it. My life looked great for how much started out. And then the world came around and pulled the rug from under me. I lost my job for no fault of my own. The pandemic really did a number on my company and they needed to cut back on employees. I needed a job and went so far as to take a few fast food shifts to keep my apartment. And with the work hours not coming in and bills piling up, I sunk down to a bad mindset. That feeling of wanting something to take the edge off had nearly taken over everything else. I was at my fast food job, about to clock out for the night. Everything cleaned up and I had another co-worker with me. He'd gone out to take out the trash 10 minutes ago. The dumpster just 5 steps outside the door. When I got worried, a bag had ripped and he needed help cleaning it up. I opened the back door, smelling the reason why my teenage co-worker was taking his damn time. I went around the dumpster to find him and 2 other people huddled away from the cameras. Well, the cameras weren't pointed at the door, only at the dumpster to prove the trash had got taken out, and no homeless men had got trapped inside overnight. Well, the company didn't care to see if anyone went back inside, so that's how he got away with smoking. At this angle, the camera didn't see them if they crouched down. "Dude, couldn't you do this after our shift? Just come in and clock out and come back outside," I said, feeling pretty annoyed that he was getting high out back and not helping me with the end of shift cleaning. "Holy shit, Noah? I thought you died or something," one of the older guys said between coughs. I looked at him long and hard, the lines of his face making him look 10 years older than he should, his teeth half missing and fingers stained from smoking. He was one of the guys I hung around with, and the other one with him was my dealer back in the day. I got acid reflux just looking at these two. Sure, I was working at a crappy fast food place, but I could have ended up missing most of my teeth and huddling in the back of a dumpster, getting high at 1 a.m. At Clinton, my old dealer laughed at me, seeing me after all these years. His laugh turned into a long, loud cough that did not sound good. "You two look like you died 10 years ago. Come on." I grabbed my co-worker by the arm and lifted him up. He protested but let himself get dragged inside. I pushed him in and closed the door so I could face the two from my past. I hated the smell of them, mixed with the rotten food in the dumpster. And Dylan stood up, careful to be out of the way of the cameras, as if he knew where they were. Hell, I bet these two provided for half the people working here. I crossed my arms, trying to look tougher than I was. They were pretty thin and worn down from the continuing on with their life I had abandoned, but I knew they could kick my ass if it came to it. You got a girlfriend these days?" Dylan asked, shuffling over. The smell of him made me want to puke, but that ache, I came back. The still lit joint in his hand reminded my body of what I had been refusing for so many years. I shook my head, wanting to get myself back on track. These two needed to piss off and never come back. I didn't want my co-worker hanging around with them. I'd always led people down the wrong path by promising such little things to start with. "You two," I started and got cut off. They both got close and I was forced against the door. I refused to let the fear of them show on my face. For a second, I thought they might get violent, but for what reason? I didn't think I left owing them money instead of my co-worker away. Well, it didn't matter. If they were going to do a deal, it would have been finished 10 minutes ago. "If you need money, we have the shack going again. You should bring a girlfriend over. We pay pretty good," Dylan said, his voice low. Clinton looked around nervous. He kept scratching at his arms and clearly wanted to leave. A cold wave came over my entire body. I'd heard about the shack, but never confirmed if what went on in there really happened. If even half of the terrible stories were true, I needed to bring the full force of the law down on whoever was running it, and fast. I went to the shack once to deliver a package, but didn't go inside. I just handed off what was needed and left. I only got asked because I was trustworthy enough to know the location. After leaving that life behind, I forgot all about it until Dylan brought up all of those memories. I shook my head but kept talking. "Just think about it. We can pay you in other stuff too. I can tell you need it," the dealer said, and his friend laughed a bit too loudly. My hands were trembling. I gripped my arms tighter, trying to hide that fact. I hated what he'd said held little truth. I wanted to forget about my bills and stress for just one night, or at least for a few hours. And at the end of Hardships, I found myself wondering if just one night would really hurt in the long run. Get fucked. I turned on my heel, opened the door, and I hit Dylan in the face with it. I slammed the door before he could attack me for hitting him. They came around the front to bang on the glass once and then left. They knew there were cameras at the front and in the parking lot because we had people smash the windows before. And my co-worker asked me what was that about, but I went into a lecture about him hanging around with those guys. I might have told some tall tales to scare him off enough to never want to see them again. Each story was based in truth, and so I didn't feel bad about sort of lying. I got him safely home because I didn't trust him to get on the bus properly. Once he was inside his place, I drove off, just making a long loop of the city the thoughts of the night eating away at me. I didn't know if Dylan was messing with me, mentioning the shack. I debated on calling the cops to check it out, but if they found nothing, they would tip off Dylan and Clinton, plus anyone else running it, or they would know who called, and that risked my life. I didn't want what I heard about it to keep going on, but I also didn't want to be kidnapped and killed for reporting it, and that made me feel selfish. I had to do something. I decided on going to the shack myself and checking it out. And if I gathered some evidence that led to the right people getting arrested, well, it might work out. It also might get me killed for spying on them and secretly filming what went on around the shack. And, who knows, maybe Dylan was just messing with me. The old rotten place had fallen down years ago. I didn't work for the next day and got ready for my new mission. I put on some boots for hiking, a water bottle, and my cell phone, an external battery for it. After all of these years, I still remember the location in the middle of the woods, only after going to it once. And that was one of my useless talents. I could remember to go anywhere, even in the dark, after going there a single time. That talent really didn't come in handy very often. I arrived into the woods in the middle of the day. Didn't look like it though. Grey clouds overhead and the trees bare. It wasn't overly cold for the season, but I still zipped up my jacket. I parked my car a block away and started to walk down the dirt road that led into the woods. I quickly went off the path as the tree marked with the red spray paint faded with age. It wasn't a very long walk from the road to the small rundown shack in the middle of the woods. I don't even know why it was ever built out there. Or maybe a hunter did it for when he spent time in the woods, and other people just took it over in time. Every step caused dead leaves or twigs to crunch under my feet. A sharp breeze blew, making me stop for a second and get the dirt from my eyes the wind had picked up. When I opened my eyes again, I was met by a baseball bat mid-swing, a second away from impacting my head. I could only stand and take the hit, unable to move out the way in time. On the hit, it knocked me over, but not out. The other two swings of the bat took care of that. I'd been so stupid. A pair of guys that had burned out their brain cells for most of their life outsmarted me. I couldn't forgive myself for falling for such an obvious trap. And when my eyes opened, being awake came with a throbbing headache. I jumped, my body tied down to a chair so I didn't get very far. I glanced around, trying to figure out how bad of a situation I had landed myself in. And I was inside the shack. That much was clear. The floor made of packed down dirt and a faint light shone through the cracks in the wooden boards for walls. The single window dirty and covered in spider webs. And Clinton waited for me to wake up. He smiled and called out for Dylan, who apparently took a few steps outside to use the washroom, because I took so long to wake back up. And a red light made me focus on a camera mounted in the small space and hidden behind Clinton for a second. "Oh, good. You woke up. I thought we would need to dump some water on you or something," Dylan said when he came back inside. Now, if they hadn't put duct tape over my mouth, I would have told him to fuck off. He ordered Clinton to get the camera set up outside, saying that the shack was too small for what they needed to do. Countless horrible mental images ran through my head of what these two had planned. They dragged me in a chair right outside, the sun starting to set to show how long I'd been out for. A camera on a tripod sitting outside, hooked up to a laptop. Why would these two record this? Wouldn't that bite them in the ass? Well, I made sure that I was in frame, and from the looks of things, the camera was recording the entire time. My stomach sank when I assumed right that this was being live streamed. Dylan saw my expression and smiled. And he loved being in a position of power over someone who saw him worthless than a cockroach. "We're live streaming this. We get paid pretty good for these shows. But lately, we run through most of our connections to you, so thank God we came across you. We always knew you thought you were too good for us. We had a bet if you called the cops or came by on your own, the outcome would have been the same. We would have put on a show. But if it was with the cops, we would need to find a new place to hold the shows." What was he? A Saturday cartoon villain? Why bother telling me any of this? I already felt more terrified than I ever had in my life. telling me details of what was going to happen, I wouldn't add to that. I soon realized the reason why he went on talking for as long as he did. Neither him or Clinton were going to be the ones to put on the show. They were just the ones to lure others in and run the camera. No, the main star was still in the woods. And when it came into view, I knew my previous statement had been false. I could feel even more fear. My body shook and I screamed through the duct tape. And standing between two trees came a massive creature. One that should have been impossible to get this size. I'd never seen one in person, but knew right away what it looked at. I'd never seen one in person, but I knew right away what I was looking at. A wild boar. The features mostly what all boars had. A long line of bristled fur ran along its back. Two massive and stained tusks came from the side of its mouth. The thing came closer, and I swear, Dylan's head didn't reach the boar's shoulders. How the hell did this damn thing get so big? I stared directly into the boar's eyes, seeing how unnatural they looked. Another breeze came, and it blew away leaves from the clearing we all stood in. The dirt once again hidden under the leaves, a dark red colour that twisted my stomach. And I had no trouble figuring out what the next few minutes held. The boar getting even closer, the rancid breath overpowering my senses. For a brief second, the eyes of the creature glowed a bright white. Then the thing came down on me with all of its weight. I felt the teeth rip into me, down to my bones. I screamed a muffled sound, my entire mind only feeling pain. I wasn't even aware the chair broke apart and my bindings came undone. If I was being eaten alive, then what was the point of knowing that? Those teeth, they weren't sharp, and I wished they were. They ground against my bones, eating and pulling something out of them, then pulled at something from deep within myself. The pain went beyond my physical body and into a part I never knew was there until those teeth found it. And piece by piece, it tore out from me. I didn't think anyone should feel this much pain and still be alive. I begged for death only to have my mind finally shut down. After everything, I'd fully expected to be dead, or in pieces in front of the shack, barely alive. I opened my eyes to sounds of people shouting. Sitting up, my body oddly was whole. My chest felt light though, too light. I was missing something I didn't have a name for. I screamed when I saw the boar nearby. The camera and laptop crushed under massive hooves. The choking scent came over us, and I found the source. Instead of tearing me apart, the boar had made a messy meal of Dylan and Clinton. I got sick and heard the shouting again. In the distance, I noticed flashlights in the dark trees. "They shall take your freedom. Come along with me." A voice spoken. It took me a few seconds to figure out it came from the boar. The words deep and they rolled over the dead leaves. The voice much like what I assumed a king might have. I looked again at the humans making their way over and knew right away that they were cops. If they saw me standing in the middle of, well, Dylan and Clinton, questions I did not have the answers for were bound to come up. The boar that caused me so much pain, and I hesitated going over to it. The thing nearly left me behind, and with some issues, I climbed up onto the wide back, and we were off running through the trees, far away from the bloody scene. The powerful beast ran like the wind. I kept a tight grip on the fur, my body feeling so light, the fast pace making it almost impossible to stay on too long. And we finally stopped, the boar tossing me off, and I landed painfully at the base of a tree. But at least I was still alive. When I rubbed my sore back, swearing, what the fuck just... My angry word cut off, seeing a new sight in front of me. A man stood in front of me, instead of the boar from a few seconds ago. I looked around for the monster, wondering how the hell it had left so fast. I then focused on the person who replaced it, my mind working slowly. Well, he was tall and very large, but large in a way professional weightlifters are. Most people think of a guy with muscles on muscles for that profession, but those are bodybuilders. In my experience, the guys who could lift a bus had a gut and not a six-pack. He wasn't wearing a shirt, so It made it easy to see his big arms, almost as thick as a tree. He thankfully wore some sweatpants, and oddly enough, a cloth hanging over his face. Seeing the long bristled hair going down his back made me put two and two together. Seriously? What the fuck? I asked, feeling exhausted. Ha 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 ha. The man laughed, making the cloth on his face move. He shifted his arms into a stretch, but thankfully went to explaining things soon, after a small warm-up. I am a god. I made a deal with those two that I'll eat the ones they bring to me, and they can film it for their little side project. He explained. A pig god? I asked slowly. Boar. He corrected, but didn't sound angry. We live to eat, and I rarely find things I haven't tasted before. Those two were running out of suitable meals, so I ate them, ready to move on. But they did bring me you. What I ate out of your bones, one of my better meals of late, and I do hope to have it again. I backed up against the tree as far as possible. He confirmed he ate something from me, but I didn't know what it was. I paused to self-reflect, trying to see what was different. All my memories seemed intact. What am I feeling? And then, what was it? I still knew my name and age. The answer finally came when I noticed how light I felt and how my hands were only shaking from fear. You ate my addictions? I said slowly, trying to wrap my head around the idea. The god laughed so loudly it shook the bare trees. I winced at the sound because he took a step closer. His hands opened wide, and I thought he either wanted to hug me or eat me. The taste of it rotting away your bones and soul was just so sweet. I wished I had more of it. You weren't without vices for years, making it wear you down and get so rooted into yourself that it would have made you collapse from inside. I love it. Those two were nothing compared to that taste. But that addiction, craving, is going to come back in a year or 2 or 10. You did well holding it back, and you'll do well when it returns. I leave you be for now, but I will check in on you to see if you have created a meal for me in the future. He said, and his words gave me chills. I shook my head but refused my answer. With a large hand on my shoulder, he started to guide me along, and I figured the way out of the woods. I looked up at him, trying to think of a way to avoid the pain I'd felt a second time. Was it worth going through all of that, so I didn't have my cravings for a few years? The police, I started. Do not worry about that. They shall think an escaped feral pig or two ate the ones we left behind. They'll find some and shoot them, he said without a care in the world. But they didn't eat them. Are you going to let 2 pigs take the fall for your crime? I pressed. I am a god. They live to eat and be eaten, and to serve whenever I ask. Well, he really sounded as if he didn't care, sacrificing 2 lives just to leave this whole thing all neatly wrapped up. I looked up at the cloth over his face, realizing I may never fully understand his reasoning or agree with it. What's with the cloth? I asked finally. He stopped, not expecting the question. He thought about it for a minute and shrugged his large shoulders. I have no decided on a face yet. I should the next time we meet. I hated the fact that I needed to see this creature again. He was a god, and I held no power to stop him from coming by again to eat away something that is going to rot me from inside in the future. Do you have a name? Or is it just Boar, God? I asked him. I expected him to think about this for longer than the answer about his face. And he came up with a name rather quick, which surprised me a little. Brawn shall be fine. He put his hands on his hips, almost expecting me to praise him for picking out a name so quickly. I didn't acknowledge it, and he awkwardly started to walk again. I started to hear the sounds from the road, making it clear how close we were from reaching society. I stopped to look up at Braun, about to ask him if he was going to keep following me or not, or if I was free to go.
I think I'm going to look around where you humans live for now. I may find a meal just as good as the one you gave me tonight. I am going to return to you in 5 years, or 10. No matter the time frame, I am going to be back to eat the rot from your bones. You forced that desire down, and I expect you are able to do it again. You did a good job for these 5 years, little human.
The god spoke, but his voice a bit softer than before. I wasn't expecting those words to really mean anything. The first part I got nervously over, but I realized I didn't have a single person to give me any praise for staying clean for so long as I did. I went to meetings and heard empty words from the people there, but no one really meant it. They just said it, so I repeated the same thing back to them. I'd fought for years by myself and never thought much of it because I assumed other people dealt with much worse. I didn't want to go through the same pain of having that part of me ripped out again. I knew if I gave in to avoid Braun coming around again, I would lose everything I had tried so hard to achieve. I looked back on my current life, suddenly not feeling as much dread and stress as before. I still had my apartment and job. I wasn't homeless yet. I had options compared to before. If I got through my childhood, I could handle everything right now. I guess I'll see you in about 5 to 10 years. Thanks for saving my life and, well, taking care of my other problem. I told him, a smile on my face, even with my head hurting as much as it did.
You really should be more careful and not let drug dealers outsmart you like this. But I do not believe I've sold the rot within yourself. It'll come back. You kept it down all on your own and need to do it again. I only gave you a small break.
For a big scary boar god, Braun could sound pretty nice. I still didn't want to hang out with him. The cloth covering his face and the unknown behind it, it really creeped me out. I started walking again, leaving the tall man behind. Glanced over my shoulder a few times, expecting him to follow, but Braun disappeared after the second glance. I knew it wasn't the last time that I would see him. I came out on the road near where I'd parked my car, unsure if that was by chance or not. My head throbbed, and it was a miracle I didn't get any lasting damage from the baseball bat to the face. I went into work the next day as if everything was normal, and got a few questions about my bruised forehead. I lied, saying I fell down my apartment steps. The co-worker who I dragged away from Dylan and Clinton started looking at me strangely. And after those two didn't show up again, he assumed I got into a fight with them and wanted to scare them away from the place. I got a little bit of respect for that. Sure, most of them bought from those two, but wouldn't have if they knew what kind of people they were. It all came out after the feral pig story. For a week, no one at work talked about anything else between our duties. But slowly, things started to even out. I got regular hours, bills paid and plans made. And after a few months, a familiar ache started to creep back into my core. I knew I just needed to put up with it. I could do this. That rot, why was it going to drag me down after I put so much into the life I wanted? That's not much. I'm never going to change the world or cure cancer. But I'm happy with what I've worked towards. Wow. Suddenly another one. Wow. Quite a deep and touching story there. And for anyone who's ever suffered an addiction, I'm sure you enjoyed that one as much as I, and can resonate with it deeply. Of course, a mighty thank you to the incredible author and good friend of the channel, 02321, from over on Reddit No Sleep. We'll be getting back into the private investigator story this week, but just had to touch base with this one. Such an awesome story. As ever, bro, I hope you're well and happy, and life is treating you well, and you enjoyed this rendition. Well, guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. Well, it really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. And if you think you can pen a story packing as much punch as this, then please do get in touch with me at the contact email, which is as on screen. contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. I hope everybody's had a fantastic week at school or work, or perhaps you're a long distance driver. Whatever it is that you do, I hope you're enjoying it and are giving it your all. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.